All right, guys, we are going to start the show in a matter of moments. Happy Friday to everybody. If you're just tuning in and watching the broadcast, you may have just caught the unfortunate news of the University of Virginia men's basketball team and its quest for an ACC tournament championship. It is now dashed after a member of UVA basketball got popped for COVID. So the semifinal game against Georgia Tech, slated for later today, now canceled.
So how does that work?
What do you mean?
Who do they play, the runner-up or?
Georgia Tech is now in the championship.
They default.
Yeah. So Georgia Tech now in the championship. So the Yellow Jackets in the catbird seat, as they say.
So they're like out of the whole tournament. Period.
The ACC tournament.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, not the big dance. The NCAA tournament is something different.
Yeah, I know that.
So they're out of the ACC tournament, unfortunately.
Yeah, but how you do in your regional tournaments, AC helps you in your positioning of the dance.
Well, they won the ACC regular season, so they had a pretty strong case for their standing in the NCAA tournament. But yes, it's disappointing regardless. They don't have a chance to get an ACC tournament title.
Poor Emily over there is like, they're talking about.
Talking sports. This is what my first job out of UVA was, working for ESPN.
Fantastic.
Yeah, syndicated talk show in 5 states.
So once we go live, Emily Funk is going to join us, and as we were talking off air before we went live, Emily is our client care coordinator and administrative manager for YRP, Yes Realty Partners, but her real job is to keep me straight.
Yeah, and that's no easy task.
No, but she's a...
And the Hall of Famer in that department is Yona Smith.
Yes.
Good night.
So I was counting on the way in. I think I got like 5 people.
Yeah, I think I might be one of those 5.
You are one of those 5 people that keep
Is
me
Quentin
straight.
one of those 5?
He could be one of those 5.
Quentin's
But
one
I
of
think
those
Quentin and I tend to... I think we need our own separate managers to keep us out of trouble. But yeah, I guess I'm a handful.
Give the show, guys, a like and a share anywhere you're watching. Judah Wickhauer is our director. Emily Funk, moments away. Keith Smith, the distinguished gentleman. I'm Jerry Miller. Judah, we can start the program when you are ready. Guys, good Friday morning. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk. This is an insider's guide to real estate life and the pursuit of happiness, presented by the Yes Team Realtors. We are live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love Seville network. The next 60 minutes, humor, some insight, some knowledge, some approachable conversation over a cup of coffee on a glorious day to be alive. Judah Wickhauer is our director. If you could, Judah, go to the studio camera and let's welcome the distinguished gentleman to the program wearing a bow tie. First time I've ever seen the man in a bow tie.
Well, there's a story behind that. It's my father-in-law's 12th year of his passing, and he was a bow tie guy, wore a bow tie, and when I inherited, oh my God, I think I got 150 ties.
Bow ties?
Bow ties.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I'm wearing it in his honor today. I missed the heck out of the man. He was a lot of fun. I was telling Emily a story on the way over. Yona used to work for, maybe I shouldn't get into this. It involves alcohol and, and troubles. But yeah, so Yona used to manage as a consultant a Finnish company, and they were selling soap, some stuff, and they were having a board meeting in New Orleans. And my father-in-law was on the board of Austrian Airlines, and I got a phone call and said, this was maybe 30 years ago, and said, guess what, we're going to New Orleans. And we flew down to New Orleans, and they had their meeting between 9 and 5, their board meeting. And my father-in-law walked down to the lobby and was talking to the bellhops and all this stuff and said, I want to know where you go to eat, and I want to know where you go to drink. And so let's say we're having fun between 9 and 5, around 5:30 after having fun all day, we decided their board meeting was over. And we kind of walked in, which maybe walking is a little bit of a stretch. We were kind of walking in, announced to everybody the board meeting was over, grabbed Yona's hand. Now she's pale white. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
She's watching right now, Keith Smith.
I did this to her. Walked out, And as we turned around, a gentleman by the name of Raiko Volkanen, which was the president of the board, jumped up and said, "I'm going with them." And the four of us walked out, and the rest is, I think, history, but I can't remember too much of the evening. But poor Yona, I put her through a lot. So
The bow tie in his honor.
is in his honor. I miss the man tremendously.
Great way to start the program.
Miss him tremendously.
A Friday on the network, one of your favorite days.
I love Fridays. We've got a rock star in the house. You know, Emily, on top of being our administrative manager, does have the task of taking care of me, which is a bit of a task here. But it's interesting. We want to talk a little bit about how to prepare your house for a winning sale in spring. Spring. And Emily has, if I got it right, has 4 home staging certifications. So,
Whoa,
Yes.
Emily.
so I'm going to let you take it over and do the intro, and we'll just make some conversation about getting your house ready for the spring.
Fantastic. Emily Funk in the house. Emily, we will start the same way like we do with all our guests. Before we talk shop, how about a little bit about Emily and what you're all about?
I am a native Kansan and have been in Charlottesville for 12 years now. This is absolutely home. We've raised our kids here. And after getting through the raising kids primarily part, I decided to pursue one of my passions, which is staging. And it's a lot of fun to stage a vacant house, but the most fun I have is helping people who are still in their house figure out how to navigate the sometimes overwhelming process of getting it ready to go on the market.
Staging, so important, certainly now more than ever. I guess give us some insight on how your passion has found a way to shine with staging, because it certainly seems like you're passionate about this.
Yes. Well, I think statistically, it kind of helps to put it into perspective. According to the National Association of Realtors, who love to track everything, 83% of buyers' agents say that staging has an effect on buyers' perception of the home. And a stager's job, in a nutshell, is to get the most profit in the least amount of time possible. And because stagers are professionals and we've been through the training, we can help narrow down the long list of things to do necessary to get your house ready to market.
83%, huh?
83%.
I believe that.
And so why is that?
I'm surprised it's not higher.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Why is it only 83%?
Well, because everyone has an opinion. And also, there are still pockets of the country where staging is not considered mandatory. There are places like California where you would never dream of putting a house on the market without it being staged first. Other areas are getting closer to that, but haven't reached that point yet.
How does the, HGTV, Chip and Joanna, all these shows are now like part of like our vernacular.
Yes.
Like when I was growing up, it wasn't like this. HGTV, we weren't super passionate like this. My wife literally will spend hours with HGTV just on TV. Yes. Now, she may not be watching it, but it's on in the background. We have a 3-year-old, and she likes having the noise to kind of cover the crying. You remember those days,
Oh,
right?
I do.
Yes. How has HGTV impacted the prioritization or the need to staging? Because I've got to imagine it had an impact.
Oh, absolutely. It has changed everyone's expectations, especially for the younger generations, especially people who are coming into the market for the first time to buy a home. They have a much different set of expectations than previous generations did when they were coming into the market. And
That's
statistics
true.
have also shown that especially the younger generations who are busy with kids and careers, they will pay more for what they perceive to be a move-in ready house because they don't have the time or the money or the desire to redo things.
So one of my favorite sayings
so true.
is less is more.
Yes.
So sometimes less will get you more on that end of it. And when you were talking generations, I kind of got sunk in my chair a little bit here. But
That's why we gave you the big boy chair today. You got the new chair.
I got the big boy chair.
You're on the big boy chair. There you
chair.
go.
I got to have my rocking chair.
Do you have one of those at YRP?
I have one I have a bunch of rocking chairs on my front porch.
Well, I'm talking about a chair like this at YRP.
Emily doesn't let me sit down.
Oh.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
Is it the other way around?
She does not let me sit down. She says, "Shut up and go up and make a sound." It was this old house, and anybody who wants to Google this was PBS, right? 1910 or whatever year it was.
What are we talking about here?
That-
Do you know what he's talking about here?
It's an old PBS show.
Okay, so you do.
I do.
Okay.
Yep.
See, Emily?
I do not know what he's talking about.
You're a kid.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're
I'm
a
sorry.
kid.
I do. I want to throw this to Emily.
Sure.
We saw, and Keith, you taught me this. We saw at the end of 2019,
Okay.
and into 2020, how new construction was tremendously impacting the market.
Sure.
And we saw how existing construction inventory was having a hard time competing with new construction.
Yep.
Because everyone loved the new shiny thing.
Sure.
Right? We saw that at Whittington. We saw that at Oak Hill Farm.
Sure.
Just to name some developments, Stanley Martin does a heck of a job.
Sure.
We love Stanley Martin.
Sure do.
This is a question I want to throw to you. Staging, when it comes with new construction, I got to think it's super important for staging to help elevate existing construction in the same breadth of new construction. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I'm going to let Emily answer that, but from a recovering developer and builder perspective, which is probably where you're throwing this at me, you want, particularly in the new construction, there's a lot of room. The home's a little bit bigger, and how does it flow? And how people want to visualize that. For the most part, most folks don't care for what's behind the drywall. How am I going to live in it, right? But I tell you, I do have a question for Emily because, and just spitballing here, but how do you navigate the perception of telling somebody, let's say declutter?
Yeah, get your family photos off the dresser.
Right. I mean, I know how I do it, but I would love to hear from somebody who has 4 certificates.
Yeah, she has a finesse, which we don't. We're too direct. We're direct. She has finesse and
Get the
class.
freaking pictures off.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Get those pictures off the wall.
Yeah,
How
no, we do
handle
not do that. We do not.
I know
do
you
that.
don't do that. I know you don't do
maybe a little bit, but we do not do that. So how do we finesse? How is that done? How do you actually manage that conversation?
That's a good question.
Well, selling a home is a very emotional experience, especially for people who've been in a home for a lot of years. They've raised their families there. And so part of an occupied stager's job is to help them to start detaching emotionally from the space. One of the ways to do that is to start bringing down personal mementos like family photos off the walls. It's important also because, one, it's a distraction. When buyers are coming in, we want them to focus on the house and not trying to figure out your family's story. But also, we want people to come in and envision themselves in the space so that they are more tempted to write an offer. They start emotionally connecting to a home, and it's hard for them to do that if there are reminders up that this house actually still belongs to someone else.
So that's a great
answer.
Great answer. So this is something we do all the time. We do this, is it time? Have you made this emotional change from a home to a house, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what Emily is talking about. Once that emotional detachment, or starts anyway, I don't think it's ever really finished until it's over with, and sometimes it's really not finished.
You know when I knew my wife was ready to go from Redfields to where we're at now? Is when she's like, okay.
No, it was a moving truck.
No,
Jerry, get in
you're probably
the truck.
right. That's probably right. I grabbed her and put her in the truck. That's when she was ready to leave.
You
the
were
house.
ready to move.
Oh, I was ready to move.
I remember Mrs. Miller not so much.
She's not, yeah, she wasn't. So, but when I knew she was ready, it was when she said, all right, let's get the storage unit to get the stuff from the house to declutter it. And then I was like, okay, she's wrapped her mind around it. That's when she's like, let's take Trey's toys out so people can come in and see how them living in the house.
So
Yes.
Pivot to a similar question, Emily. So Mr. and Mrs. Smith, married 35 years, in a house for 20 years. Yes, Mrs. Smith, we're going to sell our house one day. There you go. It's out there in the public space. But we've got like decades of stuff, right? And how do you purge? How do you declutter? How do you walk into our house and very tactfully say,
Get it out of there.
Yeah.
Well, for Keith, that's what you would do.
Right.
you can have everything but my boat.
So one of the big misconceptions that people have about staging is that it's something that you do at the last minute. And especially in a case like Keith and Yona, where they know this is coming down the pike, the best thing you can do is give yourself the gift of time. That accomplishes 2 things. It allows you to start slowly detaching and going through things, purging if necessary, deciding what you're going to gift to your children. It also allows you to enjoy any changes or upgrades you make to the house. So many of us wait till the last minute to change the carpet or paint that wall, and then we don't get to enjoy the fruits of our labors and our finances. So if you give yourself the gift of time, you're allowing yourself not to be stressed and rushed, and also to enjoy all the work you're putting in.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith have the gift of time, because I'm kind of stretching it out. But we don't have that in today's market now, right? So we don't really have the ability to say, okay, let's set this house up 6 months from now. Inventory is so short, right? And so and I think I'm going to ask Judah to buzz through some slides here that we prepared on it. So what can somebody do quickly, right, to get their home ready for the market? So we get a phone call from Mrs. Miller.
Buy a storage unit.
Buy a storage unit.
Get it in there.
But I'm talking about the physical structure itself.
Oh, gotcha.
You know,
gotcha.
what are simple things that you could do? Because if you don't have the gift of 6 months, or in my case, years, because I'm going to dredge this out as long
About
as
a coat of paint.
So what are some of the things that we can do? And we prepared slides, and Judah will buzz through them as you're talking. But let's chat about some simple things people can do.
So the most important thing is, one, to edit your belongings, because space sells. We want people to walk into a home and feel like there's room for their things here. If closets are overstuffed, if there are items on the floor, if there's a lot of furniture, people cannot envision their belongings in that space. Second thing is absolutely curb appeal, and it goes with that whole idea that you never have a second chance to make a first impression.
There you go.
So you want to make sure, because that tends to be the first photo on a listing, and everyone is starting their shopping online now, you want that to have great impact. So you want to do things like trim up the hedges, make sure none of your windows in the front are covered up. You want to freshen up the mulch in your beds, power wash the house, paint the front door. People spend the most amount of time at a showing at the front door while they're waiting for their agent to get the key and unlock the door. They can look around. So it's very important that your entryway looks fresh and clean and inviting. Put fresh flowers next to the door, a clean doormat. And then the second thing you want to do is walk into your house and use buyer's eyes. If I'm a buyer, what am I looking for? People will walk into your house and make a decision in the first 15 seconds about their opinion.
Dang.
So you want to have a nice, welcoming entryway. And also, if it's really hard, people become nose blind to odors in their own house, have a friend come by who will give you an honest opinion and say,
That's a good tip.
is there anything you smell that I might need to adjust?
I like that.
That's a good tip. Don't go near my closet, though. That is a good tip. Emily has questions coming in for her.
Let's go. But I just want to throw one tip that I do. I recommend clients do, and I'm just curious because we didn't really prepare for this. I'm just curious what Emily's suggestions. I always recommend folks. We talk about digital curb
Digital
appeal.
curb appeal, right?
That is the thing now. I suggest folks to take their screens out of their front windows.
Oh,
and
good
when
tip.
you're cleaning it, it really the screen kind of does that. Is that something you would recommend, Emily?
I would definitely recommend cleaning the windows. If that's something you want to do, that's great. But one of the best ways to mitigate odors in your house, whether that's cooking odors or pet odors, whatever it might be, is to throw your windows open 10 minutes a day and just let the air in. And so if you've taken your screens off the windows, that might be tough. So it's kind
another
of a
good tip.
balancing thing.
So if you ever go out to the new construction models,
Yeah, that's what they do?
They never have screens in them.
They never have screens in?
Never have screens.
But they put them in last?
Yeah, you get a box of screens when you close the house, and you put your screens in yourself, or you have the job super come back at the end of it. But it makes the house sparkle from the street.
And it's definitely something you could do for the photos so that when you are looking at it online,
There you go.
they're not there in the
There you
picture.
go. That's good thinking.
How about this question? This is a good one from Lauren. What happens with the nail holes in the wall?
Ooh.
Should they be patched or covered?
So as you're editing artwork on the walls, if you take something down, then yes, I would recommend that. And one of the best bangs for your buck that you can get when you are getting your house freshened up to put on the market is paint.
Oh, yeah.
It's a low low-cost investment that has high yield. So I would definitely recommend patching. And that goes for trim. A lot of people, it's easy to nick a door jamb when you're walking through with something. Just kind of go through your house and look for those spots that it's easy to live with, but somebody who's coming in for the first time might notice.
So on that whole painting thing, one of the
Nice, Emma.
conversations I have with folks is, you remember when you buy a new car and you got that new car smell?
Yeah, I love that smell.
Well, when you paint the house, you get the new house smell and that whole, just that new fresh paint on it. And then to talk about Emily's 15 seconds, I actually think it's 7, but 15 seconds walking in, that, all your 5 senses have to kick off. And, as you're walking in, your visual is, you open up the door, it's visual. But if you get that whiff of that clean, freshly painted smell, it really invites people to come on in. And one of the tricks that we used to do in open houses, and we still do it once we get back to it, is you bake like chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah, you told me that.
The reason that that's important is because,
Nostalgia.
well, that, and scientifically, your limbic system, the one that processes scent, is the only one that's hardwired into your brain that sparks emotion and memory.
Thanks for explaining that. I was confused on what that.
I think you hired the right person right there. You
Oh,
hired the right
I-
person right there.
yeah,
She's crushing this.
So there's one thing I'm really, really good at, is hiring the right people.
How about this one?
Staying out of my
This
way.
is a question for me. It's a tough question.
Sure.
Be nice.
I understand the incredible value someone of your immense talents provides in a buyer's market.
Yes.
How about in a seller's market, like now?
Yeah, so it's still important because the more perceived negatives you take away from your property, the less negotiating power you're giving a buyer. So the goal is still to get the most profit in the least amount of time, and by offering a move-in ready product, you take away any incentive for them to ask for a lower price.
There you go. And there's the answer right there.
There's
That's the answer.
Ding, 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 ding,
There
ding,
you go. Handled that very well, Emily.
Well, like I said, I think we've got a rock star here.
Yeah.
But we're doing that. We have a couple of listings coming up, and I've asked Emily to go take a look at it after we had a listing presentation and say, look, Emily's on our team.
Here's another question for you.
Sure.
Is there, okay, and I'm not sure how to word this. Are there thresholds, price point wise, where staging comes into play more? Can staging happen or not happen below certain price points? Does that make sense?
Ooh, I know the
That's-
answer to that, but I don't want to see what Emily has to say.
You know what I'm, does that make sense?
It does, yeah. very much so.
Absolutely, and it's a good question. It depends a lot on the circumstances. Any listing can benefit from having an objective pair of eyes come in and say, here's what I recommend. And statistics show that about 3/4 of the people who stage and invest 1% of the list price end up with somewhere between 5 and 25% return on that investment.
Wow.
Which is pretty great.
Yeah.
So it's worth it. Your home is never as in a strong position as it is when it enters the market. You want to have it looking its best and in its best shape the day it goes live. I've heard a lot of people
Nice.
say that we'll wait and see. That's not always the best idea, because once people have seen a property, they tend to move on from it if it wasn't appealing the first time they saw it.
And it's the conversation we've been having for a year and a half, I guess now, about pricing right. You really you really need to price it right for the market. And we talked about this before. If you're overpriced, you get so many a substantial percentage of eyeballs less. The same thing, you only get, like you said, you only get a chance of first impression once.
Yeah.
On that end of it, and
That's essentially the essence of everything what we're talking about.
That's exactly
the
right.
price point and the staging is you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
yeah, I mean, Emily's clearly a rock star, and,
Yeah.
and we joke around her. Well, maybe it's not a joke about taking care of me, but at the end of the day, it's one of the things that excited me the most about bringing Emily on the YRP team is because we have this resource needed, and the price point is,
How about your temperature of the street, of the market? You're the demo that everyone's going after, right?
Right.
I mean, you're the quintessential demo that everyone is going after. Is that not right? Age, mom, running, What's your temperature
So
of the...
I live in a house of women. I will never ask Emily her age. So
No, I'm saying Emily is the demo that everybody wants.
that is true.
What's your temperature on the market?
Well, we are actually going to be in the market for a house soon.
Hey, you need a real estate agent?
So it's been interesting to watch. I mean, there's a lot of demand out there right now, which is great for people who are in the market to sell.
Are you nervous about entering the market? I know you've done this before. Not nervous. I mean you're talking multiple offer situations. You're
Right.
talking extremely competitive here. I mean, what's the conversation you guys are having?
Well, I think it helps being part
In
of
the
the
game.
industry and
Yeah.
knowing. So it's more kind of helping my family understand what kind of expectations to have, and that we have to be patient and understand that we might not get the first thing that we make an offer on, and to be okay with that.
Many assets that Emily has. One of them, she's a licensed real estate
Right.
agent.
She's in the game.
She's in the game. So I'm reading through our slides and our little notes here. One of the ones that caught my eye, particularly in today's world of COVID, is give every room a purpose. So
That's a great idea.
Let's talk
Yes.
about that. What does that mean?
So that can go either way. You don't want to have spaces in a home that leave people scratching their heads. What would I use this for?
There you go.
What was this room meant to do? You also don't want to have rooms with dual purpose when you're showing a house. And one of the things that's important to understand is that people don't live in staged houses. So it's going to feel different when your house is staged for photos and showings than it does living in it day to day.
I don't mean to interrupt you here.
Yeah.
Why not dual purpose rooms anymore?
I just wrote that down.
Yeah.
Same question.
Because it also offers confusion. And if you're using a bedroom as both a bedroom, like a guest bedroom, and an office, then potential buyers come in and think, well, there's not room for me to have a guest room and an office, so maybe this isn't my house.
That makes sense. That's well said.
So then you would say in that particular case, the seller would have to make a decision. Is this and then
Well, the seller would probably talk to the agent of what's the best way to position this room.
and
Yeah.
the stager,
Yeah, and then the agent consults with the stager.
and then everybody has a conversation
Right.
that in this particular case, in this particular market, in this particular house, it may be better for this to be an office.
Right.
Yes.
Unless it's a 2-bedroom and you need the third because you want to appeal to the family with the kids.
Yeah. Well, if it's a 2-bedroom and somebody needs a 3-bedroom, they probably shouldn't be looking
Looking at that space.
at that space
Yeah.
to start with. But that doesn't mean they can't look at it, and particularly in today's market. And this is the assets that we'll bring to the table is, well, look, okay, you're in the city of Charlottesville. It's a 2-bedroom. It's an 800 square foot, 700 square foot home. But hey, by the way, we're buying it at this for an extra X. You can put an extension off the back of it because you got all this room on the lot. So you don't want to discount it, particularly in today's inventory shortage.
Because you're saying they have to be creative.
You're going to have to be a little creative. But from a staging perspective, that was the note that jumped off the page at me, to give every room a purpose. And I'm not so sure that was a big issue pre-COVID.
No, pre-COVID, flex rooms were all the rage, right?
Yeah.
Am I wrong in saying that?
No, and
That's the reason I
having a
brought it up.
flex
Yeah.
room generally would be staged as like a rec room or something.
Right.
But for a compartmentalized room like a bedroom, you definitely want to pick what you're selling it as. And in this market, I would say if you have a way to showcase a work from home space, that is incredibly
Hugely valuable.
important. Yes.
Dude, you're crushing this. She is very good at this. How about Harry's involved from Connecticut?
Oh, Harry.
Yeah. He's got a good question.
Harry. Go, Harry.
Harry Tyson, love when you watch the show.
Don't edit his question.
No, I won't.
He needs the whole thing written out.
Does he say I edit sometimes?
He edit a little too much. I'm just saying.
Sometimes he writes long.
Well, because he's got all these educational.
He writes long. Harry, I love when you watch the show, Harry Tyson. I feel like I know you and I don't know you.
No. We're having, he doesn't know this yet, but we're trying to finesse that he can come down, just now that we can have 4
And
people.
be on the show?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm just going to sit back and just take the slings and arrows and stuff like that.
I would love that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
So Harry's watching from Connecticut. Here's his question. Emily, how do you determine what style to stage the house? Do you base it more on the demo, the neighborhood, or the house itself? The demographic of the neighborhood or the house itself? Good question, Harry.
That is a good question. And again, I will say it depends. You definitely don't want to stage so that it doesn't fit the style of the house. You don't want to cause that dissonance for people when they walk in and say, something about this doesn't fit. But statistically, people who are going to be looking at a house are the same age and sort of life stage as the seller was when they bought the house.
Really?
Yes.
Is that true?
Oh,
Is that true?
It can be, yes.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
In today's
So-
market?
We might have to have a debate about
In
that.
today's market, I don't know.
In today's market, it's a little bit different.
Okay.
When it's more of a buyer's market, that's definitely the case.
I think
Go, yeah, let's
Yeah.
let her finish, and then we're going to dig into this. Yeah, we both went, what?
So for someone who's lived in a house 20 years and has raised a family there, generally it's going to be a bigger house with more space. And so the people who are looking for a house like that are going to be a family who needs space. And so it's not the case across the board, but you want to stage with the demographic in mind, like Jerry said, of the people who are likely to be looking for a house like the one that is being sold.
in essence, I don't 100% disagree with you.
Yeah, with what she said there, I agree. She's basically saying, why would you buy a 5-bedroom house unless you were a 5-bedroom family?
That's
That has
or
kids.
planning
Or
to
planning to have kids.
Have five.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of how the people were who bought the house or built the house.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
And particularly, I used to have this conversation with folks that either built very custom homes or they're trying to sell a house that's super customized. Basically, we're trying to find another you, right? You know, that I 100% agree with. But
What's an example of that?
Excuse me?
What's an example of what you're talking about there?
I mean, example of what is
Like super custom
you know,
that you've encountered.
Oh, good Lord. There's so many of them. I can't think off the top of my head. I'll have to give that a little thought and bounce back.
Because I'm sure you've seen some stuff.
I've seen some stuff. You
Yeah.
know, like I'll give an example as far as finishing, which a stager will appreciate. There was a house that we were trying to sell, or did sell eventually, that they decided seafoam green was like the new incoming color, like 1970s shag carpet and all that kind of great stuff. They were convinced the 70s were coming back, bell bottoms and all that stuff, and they customed the house to that, and that was a bit of a struggle to sell. People couldn't get past that. But there's things, you know, people do things like, I tell you what, I've got one.
Okay.
I knew I'd give me a little bit of time. There was a house that we sold. Actually, I built it. And the guy was a New York City subway buff.
Okay.
And the whole basement was set up like an actual New York City subway.
Wow.
I mean, just literally the tiles, it was set up for that. And unfortunately, there were some health issues and they needed to sell the house. And it was, you know, was like, guys, I think we need to I know this is going to break your heart, but I think we need to take this out and do something a little bit more neutral on it. But, you know, literally, if you would imagine walking into a New York City subway.
That was the basement.
You walked into the basement. That was just like it.
And did they listen?
Maybe not.
Did you sell the house?
We sold the house.
Yeah. What was the days on market?
Yeah, this was a couple years ago.
Okay.
Do not get me.
Leave it at that.
Do not get
We'll
me
leave
into
it at
trouble, Miller.
Okay.
But you know, but I do take a little bit of. I think
Yasmina said ramps.
ramps.
Quote, ramps, end quote. And Harry, that period should be inside the quote there, not
Oh,
outside.
no.
The period should not be outside the quote there. It should be inside
gonna
the
get a
quote.
phone call.
Ramps. I just busting balls, Harry. I hear you like to bust balls. She says ramps. You should know what ramps mean. Does that mean a unique house that you had to sell that had ramps? Is what I would think. That's
She's
what that
probably
means.
talking about me being old, and I'm gonna need.
Oh, is your nickname Ramps?
No. If I'm old, I'm gonna need a walker and all
Oh,
that stuff.
okay. So
no,
Yasmina's throwing shade from Connecticut over here.
Yeah, they're throwing a little bit of trash. Well, I think she's probably referring to when I broke my back. I needed a wheelchair and stuff like that in the house.
Okay,
The
that's what
house.
she's referring to.
Yeah, the house.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. But to follow up on that a little bit, the you know, we always I happen to love single level floor plans. It appeals to the larger folks, master bedroom on the first floor, and all that kind of great stuff. So that buyer profile would be Keith and Yona,
Sure.
or Emily, right, or first-time home.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah. So I think as far as matching the demographic in that particular situation, it probably won't. It more than likely be that. But also in today's market, you're seeing bags of cash, right? We talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
Coming down from Connecticut or whatever, and they're retirees and they're buying these homes what's going on? Are they giving me a hard time?
She's Harry. I love when Harry watches.
Yeah.
This is
Harry, don't you have to work to do or something?
This is a good question. This is a good question from Emily. This is from Grace. She watches our shows all the time.
Oh, hey, Grace. Thank you so much.
And she says, in a world of open floor plans,
there you go.
How do we take a compartmentalized house and boxy rooms and make them appealing? Hint, hint. That's our house, Jerry. That's what she just said.
That's a great question.
That's a lot of people's houses.
It is. It is. And it's the pendulum is kind of starting to swing. And the reason for that is that, like in my house, we had 2 adults working from home for a while and 3 kids doing school from home. And open floor plans are really hard to make that work effectively. And so people are starting to look for more compartmentalized houses. It's not going to be an overnight sort of change, but it is moving that direction as more and more people are continuing to work from home.
COVID could...
Oh, big time.
Did you just hear that, Lauren?
Yeah.
I'm talking to my wife who's watching. All the moms out there. So you're saying COVID could influence homes and layouts away from open to back to compartmentalized?
Not completely, but it's going to put an emphasis on having spaces that you can close doors and shut off the sound from the family room or shut off sound from the kitchen.
Totally makes sense.
So to add to that, I read an interesting article this morning. I think it was the Wall Street Journal or whatever.
A good example of that is your Zoom office at your house is at the loft.
It's in the loft.
And occasionally you can hear noise downstairs or emptying of the dishwasher. Had you have had a closed door in a room, that would not be the case. That's what she's saying.
So I've got my son-in-law busting my chops, and now I have. So was that a dig at me?
It was not a dig.
That I need to make sure
not,
that
I was trying to do an example to back what Emily was saying.
Okay.
Is that what you were saying?
Oh, absolutely. My husband, when he's on meetings, can hear our dogs snoring very often.
Yeah.
So it's,
Multiple people are saying wild. That is crazy. That is, and it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to add to that before you decided to go on my dishwasher thing that I have to make sure is not operating in the next Zoom call that we do, I was reading an article, Target in Minneapolis, I think they're based out of Minneapolis, if I remember it right, have officially went to what you and I have been talking about, this hybrid work thing. They're literally shutting down their office operations in Minneapolis, I think if I got the city right, to do this hybrid thing. They're going to reduce the size of the footprint of their physical office and allow folks to work from home. So what Emily's talking about, I think, is an ongoing trend. And actually yesterday at the general membership meeting for CAR, we had Dr. Lisa Staravent, excuse me, and she was talking about the trends that this is where that's going. So now that makes the stager even more important because they need to adapt to this new changing market so we can kind of show somebody how they can actually live in the house.
Christopher Eagle, welcome to the broadcast.
Hey,
we love you, Christopher Eagle. Let's be honest. Like, if we're going to continue going down this road of like Zoom meetings, and we don't know if we will or we won't. You listen to the CEOs on Wall Street, and they say the financial firms in New York City will come back to office work full time. But then you talk to some of the big tech companies, and they're like, we're fine with this hybrid setup, and we're fine with people working from home.
It's more efficient.
It's more efficient. So we don't know. I will say this.
But I taught a class Wednesday and Thursday about new construction via Zoom.
Okay.
And I hated it.
You hated it. Yeah, it's not for everybody. I will say this.
No, I like Zoom. I love, I chair a bunch of meetings. I love doing those kind of things. This was a very hands-on about new construction on how to write new construction contracts and sell new construction contracts.
Well, in one of your incredible skills, one of your many incredible skills, I sincerely mean this.
You're making up.
One of your many incredible skills is you have a way with people, and that skill is not in its fullest form when you're interacting with that person via screen. Don't you think?
Yeah, I much prefer to look at you.
Right, because then you can read body languages. So I guess where I was going with this, and I'll throw this to Emily, eventually it's going to not be cute anymore for your dog or your kid to come into the home office while you're on a Zoom call.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, we're in that stage where it's okay if your grandma or your mom, or you know what I'm saying? And it's, so-and-so, the kid ran into the Zoom call.
Cute.
Eventually, that's going to get annoying.
And when it gets to the actual, real functioning hybrid, right?
People are going to be like, you can't do that anymore.
And then that's when...
And that's what, to her point.
That Emily's point, that you're really going to need that.
Do you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And some of that will be changed because once we fully decide whether the world is going to stay partially hybrid in the workforce, is that kids will be back in school, back in daycare. It's just that the workforce is going to look a little different. But there's always things. It's nice, too, to have an office that you can shut the door and walk away from at the end of the day instead of having your workspace be the kitchen table and you're constantly shifting stuff around, and it's harder to draw that line and say, okay, my workday is done. So there's lots of benefits.
Christopher said you just wanted to see him in person for the class.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was all about you, Christopher. No, but it makes a difference, because you're 100% right, because you can't, so not to get into the weeds on this stuff of it, but I was doing a PowerPoint presentation, right? Now, I don't have two screens, so I just have one screen, and all I see is like the PowerPoint presentation and me.
Yeah, you don't see the people.
I don't see the people, so I'm like...
You were doing a screen share.
Most people think I talk to myself on a regular basis anyway, but I was like talking to myself, and I couldn't figure out who, if they were getting it or they weren't getting it, or, but hopefully we'll get back to that soon.
Emily, you have killed it. We have more comments.
I promised her 15 minutes, but I kind of lied to her.
Can you keep
bit.
going?
Sure.
Okay, so Laura Sherling says, Emily, this has been a fantastic interview. Please continue to add a female perspective to Keith and Jerry. Literally said that. Okay. And then she's, thank you for saying that. Then she said, what trends do you see coming from a housing standpoint, from a design standpoint?
Well,
great question.
So that is a great question. And I will say that my wheelhouse is staging and not design. And the reason that distinction is important is because those two things are two sides of the same coin. So a designer's job is to come in and personalize a home to your family's needs and tastes. My job as a stager is to come in and depersonalize it in order to appeal to the broadest possible audience. So some things about that will never change. Having neutral backdrops, because people can more easily see their favorite color in their minds if they're looking at a neutral wall than if they're looking at a brightly colored wall. I will say, I think probably we're going to see... How
about as a super cool lady who's got fashion sense, looks fantastic, what do you see coming from a design? Not as a stager, as a super cool lady.
How about twisting that?
You're not the super cool lady. She's the super cool lady.
I apologize. We need more female perspective.
Okay.
I apologize.
How about as a super cool lady? What do you see as the design trends coming?
I see that we are going to need more places for our families to go to have individual space. That's been a tough thing in homes that have wide open spaces. There's not a lot of room to go be alone unless you're locked in your own room. I've seen this with my teenagers. I think we are going to see, there's been kind of this trend of dark, moody colors lately. I think we're going to see a trend back toward lighter colors. People want to feel a sense of lightness and buoyancy in their homes again because just the last year has been so heavy. Those are kind of my main, those are the things I see trending the most right now.
So literally, the color question was
Yeah.
the question I was going to ask before I reminded we need more of a female perspective.
Is it still modern gray? Is that all the rage? And Beth Richmond Hyder is watching,
Hey,
and she
Beth.
says, hybrid meetings at the Hillsdale Conference Center, no dishwasher noise, no barking dogs in the background, no one walking into your Lake Monticello house. She's hinting, come to
Beth?
You have the YRP office.
Beth, I apologize. We won't be meeting there soon. But the color question, if you don't mind.
Is it modern gray still?
Well, any kind of neutral. There was kind of a move toward warm, earthy tones, so beiges came back a little bit. And even a warm white is not a bad thing if you're neutralizing your house. The idea is just to have a kind of neutral color that someone can come in and envision what their favorite bold, bright color is, because bold color is a very personal choice for people.
So, Beth, I'm going to reach out to you after the show because next week we're doing a class on custom new construction, and I think we're going to kind of see if we can get your big space here and everybody can be 8 or 10 feet apart because I just need that interaction. So I'll reach out to you, Beth, after the show.
I love it. I love it. Making moves on the show on air.
There you
More
go.
questions for Emily. Yona's giving you some props. Yona, I sincerely agree with this as well. Yona says you are a super cool lady, and she says this is a fantastic interview. So much useful and helpful information to think about and to implement. That is being echoed by other ladies watching the program as we speak.
So I made a
Perhaps
note.
make a
More
note. Emily
women.
Funk. This is
Emily
now
Funk.
part of her job.
Emily Funk.
It's Real Talk.
We'll sit in hot seat from now on.
Executive producer. Good job.
Executive. Oh, she's the
No,
executive.
you.
I think
this
she
is
just
why
became.
you're so good at being an executive producer.
I think she just became the executive
Can you
producer.
show everyone the notes you're taking on the screen? Look at his notes, Emily. These are his notes right there.
That's fantastic.
So when Emily can read Keith. Emily's been in several whiteboard sessions.
Oh,
with
so
Keith.
she knows your note-taking skill set?
She can actually look at my whiteboard and understand it.
Beth says, you've got it, Keith.
Thank you,
It's on
Beth.
the schedule.
For next Wednesday.
You've got it, Keith. It's like you just booked an appointment on the show right here. All right, this one's about...
We got to negotiate price. That's a whole different
Okay,
animal.
people want more design from Emily here.
Well, we were going to talk numbers, but we're going to stay with Emily.
Okay.
That's an executive producer decision, I think.
Good move. Smart move. Is it still white kitchens, white cabinets, and open to a place where kids can hang and watch and do their homework? Is
I got
that
it.
still what's popular now? That's from Kelly.
It is, and especially kitchen design has come such a long way, and you can do so many fun things. But if it's a question of getting your house ready to market, white kitchens are a safe bet because, again, people can come in and say, great, I'm halfway to my ideal tuxedo kitchen, I can just paint the island, whatever it is. And yes, having some open space to be able to keep an eye on your kids while you are busy in the kitchen, it's a great thing to have as a mom. So I don't think that's going away.
And I've got a follow-up question to that.
Sure.
Not that this might be happening at the Smith household, but I happen to have solid maple cabinets. And,
My wife does not like those.
And Mrs. Smith wants to paint them white.
Yes, my wife likes white.
Emily.
All the wives like white.
All right, Emily. This is
Yeah.
what we're gonna do in front of how many thousands of people?
The
are watching?
maple were great.
Maybe it was a 1990 thing. And since it's Emily, should I paint my cabinets white?
Do you paint cabinets? You paint the fronts?
I would recommend that, yeah. I mean,
All right.
stained
So, Mrs.
cabinets are
Smith,
still
we're going
not
to
a
paint the
trend.
cabinets white.
Do you recommend any way to paint them? Is that part of a stager? I mean, because sometimes the painted cabinets don't always look
Yeah, well,
great.
Emily would punt that back to me. And
Okay. Then you would outsource.
We would outsource it.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got.
Because you've
Some-
seen the poorly painted looking cabinets, right?
Yeah. In order to do it right, you've got to pull the doors off. You got to have them sprayed.
Yeah.
You know, you just don't go there with a paintbrush.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's that. But that's been an ongoing debate in the Smith household. And of course, we used to own a cabinet company, and I happen to be someone who likes wood, and I just love my maple cabinets. But
Beth says paint those cabinets white ASAP. Damn it, Keith.
Beth-
She didn't say damn it. I added the damn it.
Beth-
She said paint
Beth,
them white ASAP.
I was going to pay for that space on Wednesday, but maybe I'm not now.
Harry, good question. If you paint the house, please leave a list of the exact color and brand you painted each room for the new owner.
Ooh.
The interior of my house is painted with 4 different grays, and it was a nightmare to repaint some areas based on the paint cans they left in the basement. Trial and error to figure it out is not ideal.
It's very true.
And did you edit that?
No, I read everything verbatim. I did not.
Do not
Harry,
edit it.
I did not edit. I did not edit,
I'm
Harry.
tired of hearing it.
I'm sorry, Harry.
tired of hearing
I will
it.
never edit again, Harry.
But yeah, so what you could do is on the back of one of the cabinet doors is put a sticker on there, one of those things that you pipe, the old school on it. What the actual code? No, what is he giving?
Yona. She's going to the store buying white paint.
No, Mrs. Smith.
She said, everyone heard that, Keith Smith. White cabinets. Yona's happy.
Yeah, I think I have to stop doing the
Why
show.
wouldn't you do
I
it
have
white?
to stop doing the show.
White is a no-brainer.
I'm done with this show. I'm getting myself into trouble. Yeah, Mrs. Smith, we will go hire. We've got a name of a gentleman that will do it, so we will do it. That means we got to change the countertops out now. We need backsplashes, so We'll have to, Emily, by the way, you're going to have to come over because we're going to need some suggestions.
You're going to need some
Fantastic.
staging help.
Need some staging help. Just stay the hell away from my boat.
Keith, you're in a good mood today.
I'm in
You're
a good
always
mood, but
in a good
I'm
mood.
getting in myself. Yeah.
I think we may have found a new addition to the show over here at
We
Emily
have.
Funk.
I think so.
Do you not think so?
I think so. I think this is just.
Does she have any idea what's in store for her now?
She
I don't
has
think
no
she
idea.
does. You have
She has no idea.
Go.
So what we're doing right now is pretty much what we do in our office. So just happen to have 15 cameras looking at us at the time and a couple of microphones.
What are we missing here that we're not covering, Emily? That we should be covering? That should be out there? You got. Let me tell you who's watching. Okay, you got folks. You got Beth watching at Hillsdale. You got the folks at Long and Foster, at Nest. Your colleagues at Yes Realty Partners, and Yes, I See You Real Estate 3 watching the show as well. What are we missing here, Emily?
I would say that it's a good investment on the part of realtors to have a stager too, because it helps to bridge the gap between the hard conversations that you need to have with your clients. Stagers can help both realtors and sellers to achieve the desired outcome for everyone, which is to have the highest profit in the least amount of time. So there is real value in the staging industry, and I just encourage everyone to find someone that they can work with comfortably and comfortably recommend to their seller clients.
You know when I knew Emily had A++ game? When Caitlin Mancini says this person has game, because Mancini's got some extremely high expectations and standards.
And she's an excellent stager.
Yes.
unto
Herself.
Unto
Yes.
herself.
Yeah, and she said you had game, and I'm like, okay, this person has. Another question: should garages and attics be empty?
Ooh.
No, not necessarily. You want to make sure that there is a defined space to park a car in a garage and that people can comfortably walk through that space. I would say on the list, on the hierarchy of things to do, it's toward the bottom, because generally photos aren't taken of the inside of a garage unless there's a special feature they want to highlight. Attics, same thing. If it's a walk-up attic, make sure there's a space for people to be able to walk through and see the space. If you're short on time, the two things that you should focus on really organizing are the master bedroom closet, a pantry so that you don't have things spilling off shelves, because you are trying to have a perceived abundance of space. Storage is at a premium for everyone. It's important to everyone, and so you want to highlight that storage space to the best of your ability.
Note to self: clean, decluttered garage for Emily. comes
Mine's a
over.
mess. Mine's a mess. Jamie Waller, welcome to the broadcast. Thank you for watching.
So we're gonna put in the feed the slides that I sent Judah, because there's a couple
Please.
of quick high level stuff that anybody can do. Just to rattle off a few of them. Obviously, if you use us, we're gonna bring Emily along to help stage your house. But just clean, declutter. If you could just rattle them off real quick, so I don't miss them. Emily, and if Judah can buzz through the slides while you're doing that would be great.
Sure. So focus on curb appeal. Make sure toys are picked up. If you have yard art or flags, they're a lot of fun, but they're not wildly and widely appealing to everyone. So it's a good thing to just pre-pack those, put them away so they're ready for your new home. Make sure all of your exterior lights are working. That goes for the inside too. Make sure all of your light bulbs are working, especially for photos, because those dark spots will stand out. Make sure your house numbers are easily visible.
Why is that, Emily? Because that's on our notes. Why is it important to have a house number? Because I don't have a house number on my house. Why
It
is
makes
that
it harder
important?
for people to find it. It's not so much true in these
phones
days
now.
of GPS widely available.
So it's a visual thing to find the
is.
actual house. It's not necessarily an staging kind of thing. It's okay. I can find the house easily. I can go in. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and it's a fun way to add some personality too. There are lots of choices out there for house numbers, and it can reflect
Should
some
I light
style.
it? Should I light them? Is that beneficial?
It
Backlight
is. There aren't a lot of people who are out actually viewing houses after dark, but they could drive by at night just to get a feel for the neighborhood at different times of day.
Speaking of which, this weekend we put the clocks back, don't we?
Is that
Yes.
Spring forward.
Yes,
Yeah.
All back spring
finally.
forward.
My favorite time,
There you go.
right? A little more sunshine's good for everybody.
Yes.
Declutter. Let the light in. Give room some purposes. Clean, 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 clean.
Yes.
Obviously, if it's broken, fix it. Right? What am I missing? Exterior lights, washing, facelift on the front door. Most, I think we did this with the NAR. The two biggest bangs for your buck on doing something to your house is redoing your front door and your garage door for whatever reason. That was like 97. You get like 7% of your money back or somewhere.
We were shocked about the misconception on redoing your kitchen.
That
The
number is-
ROI you get from redoing your kitchen is not nearly what you think it is.
Yeah, but it's
Isn't
funny.
that right?
Yeah. So Mrs. Smith and I are having a conversation about actually redoing the kitchen.
So
and
you're talking about like that 5-figure, 6-figure conversation.
something like
Yeah.
that. But I think there's more value added if we paint our cabinets white, which I don't want to do because I like wood, right? New light fixtures, I'm okay with that. But so I think that's what we're doing. Mrs. Smith and I will be painting our cabinets white.
Are you heading down the road to putting the place on the market? A wise agent told me that now is a good time to sell your house. Is that a wrap? And that's the show today.
Look at the time.
Look at the time.
Look at the time.
How many homes are on the market in Lake Monticello?
Not enough.
Out of 4,400? 4,300?
This morning, actually, 12.
Wow.
I think 3 coming soon.
How's coming soon's looking?
I haven't had a chance to dig into them this morning. I was kind of wrapped up preparing for today's show on that end of it. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know how to couch this conversation, but I've been having some conversations with these production builders, and it looks like they're kind of slowing sales down a little bit intentionally.
Explain that.
Well, what they don't want to do is oversell their production capacity, I think is what's going on. I don't have too much details in it.
So let the supply chain catch up.
Let the supply chain catch up. And, as putting on my recovering developer and builder hat on that stuff, the reality of it is the inventory from a builder's perspective is like zero, right? There's not a lot of new projects coming on, though. We'll talk about this a little bit later in some shows about, there's going to be probably in the next 12 to 24 months somewhere around 700 to 1,000 new lots coming on in the area, but it's going to take 12 to 24 months to happen. So what they're trying to do is stage this stuff out. As this world goes, you're my drywall guy coming down from Northern Virginia, and you're doing X number of units a month. All of a sudden, that dries up. You're going to go find somebody else to work for, and then getting you back is like next to impossible. And
you know what? We talked about this on one of our shows. So many people looking to hire, so many people looking for work, and yet people can't connect. Your neighbor over at Ix, our client, Patty Zeller, our friend, looking for a groomer.
Yeah.
Pays well, great job, Benny's, everything you want. Can't find a groomer. Supply chain, same thing, right?
Supply chain.
I mean, it's everyone.
It's
Restaurants.
Well, we're not. One of my other topics, and we'll probably save this for Tuesday.
The stimulus?
I wanted to talk about the stimulus.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, and one of the neat things about it, and I noticed it in my peripheral reading, is that it'll provide $25 billion for restaurant revitalization, which is exciting. So this could be used for payroll costs, mortgage and rent payments, utilities, maintenance, supplies, food and beverage expenses.
It's amazing.
Covered supplies costs, yada, 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 a couple of different things. So the good news is it looks like we got about $25 billion. How that's actually going to
coming down the pipe.
How it's going to work its way down is
Ray Cadell, welcome to the broadcast.
Hey, Ray, how's it going, brother?
Stimulus and real estate. If we have how many $1 trillion coming from the federal government, the payments start hitting people's accounts this weekend, Keith Smith.
Yep. Sure.
How do these stimulus payments impact the real estate market?
So
do they even impact the real
So
estate?
I'm listening to you. I'm just trying to look at my notes real quick here so I don't do anything. What I'm reading here peripherally, and this just came out on the 10th, so I don't think everybody really knows.
Yeah, no one knows yet.
Know what's going on here. But I think it's going to have a bit of boost. I'm a little concerned about the production side and the inventory side, like everybody else is.
A boost to real estate, the stimulus.
Well, because what's going to happen is it's going to be set by household type, X number of dollars. So conceivably, you could receive enough money for a down payment. That would be a really good use of that money if you're renting or something and you have 4 people. I haven't done the math yet, and somebody who's a lot smarter than me will do it, like Neil or something like that. But this isn't just a $500 check or a $600 check. It's a substantial amount of money that could, and we have this conversation all the time, that, it's a bit of a fallacy.
Wow, that would be crazy right there. Stimulus checks as down payments for homes.
Well, you would receive the money, and then you could, instead of going...
you can disperse it any way you want.
Correct.
If
yeah.
stimulus checks drive more people into the market to buy homes, that furthers the inventory pinch.
Yeah, and I was working on some inventory slides and stuff like that, but, we were chatting a little bit about the new construction, and Jude, if you wouldn't mind doing slide 8 for me, please. This is an interesting slide that I put together on it, which it shows what the average units from the new construction side of things. And I think that's what we really need to ramp up. And Neil talks about this all the time. And
Neil Williamson, Free Enterprise Forum.
And one of the items I was reading in the stimulus plan was that they're actually going to be providing some money to local jurisdictions to hire some more, thank you, Judah, to hire some more people, some more staff, because that's one of that we have a restriction on folks or employees at the production side of the house, right? We also have restrictions from there's not enough people. Prime example, DPOR. We're trying to get some licenses for some folks and stuff like that. And they're behind schedule. I know. They're behind schedule. Will you stop?
Good, Emily.
Emily's going.
She's like, don't go down that road.
Go down that road.
I've gone down that road with him. So
Okay.
have you.
All right,
We're
all
not
right.
going down that
A
road.
new executive decision.
Okay, we're not talking about
New
it.
executive decision. Emily, you're now sitting in that seat
Yeah.
from now on.
You'll love
Keep
this.
us out of trouble.
Your daughter in Seattle?
Yeah. Oh, cool. Both
She
my
says,
girls are watching. How
I
cool
love
is
your
that?
bow tie, Dad.
Thank you.
You were always the best dressed Smith.
Well, thank you. How many Smiths do you know? No, anyway. But,
I think she's talking about.
Yeah.
You were always sharply
oh,
dressed.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, this
you
was
calls me to raise my game.
this.
And he's also, Yvonne, he's also very, look how tan the man is. He's been kissed by the sun over here. This is why he likes coming to Real Talk, because he comes in here, the man already has a tremendous amount of confidence, and then he spends an hour over here, and we give him some compliments.
I think you're flattering yourself a little too much there. I'm just saying. I think the man crush is getting a little out of hand here.
Carrie Rock, welcome to the
Carrie.
broadcast. Thank you for your service, Carrie Rock.
Thank you for your service,
He has a
Kara.
question for you.
Sure, go ahead.
I'll ask that question, Carrie.
Excuse me to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Emily's sitting quietly over there. If you want to jump in on answer
Yeah.
any of these, please jump on in.
He can immediately take the 2-shot and chop it into a 3-shot. Judah, if she's ready to chime in, just interrupt us, right?
That's all you got to do. And
Is
we
interrupt us. Well, let's go long because she's great. If that's okay with you.
No, let's ask Alfred.
Yeah, that's right. We should ask Judah because he has the pressure on him.
Yeah. Are
Judah, is
we
it all right
okay
if we go a little long?
And
Okay.
Have you remembered what we laughed about on Tuesday? We got to do that because of 145 shows, you laughed so hard you turned red on Tuesday.
So Carrie Rock, his wife, their beautiful daughter. Carrie, and help me here. I'm going to try to remember. In fact, I'll go to Facebook Messenger. He said, here's a conversation for the next real estate market show with you and Keith. We have now sold 2 houses in this wild market successfully. We have a 3rd house to sell. I'm impressed, Carrie Rock. You're a young guy, 3 houses to sell. We now have a 3rd
Well,
to sell.
that's the example of what ownership does for you.
Right.
And before you ask the question, and I didn't kind of get this out before with this stimulus checks, this whole fallacy about 20%. Some of these loans are 0% if you're a VA or VHDA loan, right? But it's usually between 3 and 7%.
Well, that's why you're saying if the stimulus check, depending on your household income, is $1,400 for mom, $1,400 for dad, $1,400 for each kids, before you know it, if you have a couple Bambinos, you're looking at $5,600.
Yeah, so I don't know if the math works out that way because I haven't dug into it, but that's my interpretation
Well, no,
of a quick
you're
reading.
right.
Quick
and
reading, I
it's
believe
based
that's
on
what's gonna
income
happen.
threshold.
Correct, yeah.
It's based on income
I
threshold.
think you can't make over 80,000 for a single.
As the
and
primary
something-
owner. Yeah, right.
something like
So
that.
here's the question from Carrie. We have a 3rd home to sell, which we're being told will sell for $550K.
Okay.
This is where we say, Carrie.
Call me. Call Emily.
Or
Call
Emily.
Christopher.
Call Yona.
Michael Flecker. Call Yona.
But after that, we would need to buy at the current inflated prices.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword. Can you ask Keith Smith about this?
Wow. So
It's a great question. It's a great topic.
it's a great topic, and it's the true debate between Mr. and Mrs. Smith, right?
What do you mean?
Well, I can sell my house and make a little bit of money. Where am I going to go? What am I going to buy? Now, Mr. Smith's taste is somewhat expensive.
Yeah, you have champagne taste. We all know you have champagne
Mrs.
taste.
Smith, maybe not so much.
She does not have champagne taste. She's reasonable and practical.
Very much so. Very Germanic, very Austrian.
Right.
Right. On that end of it. But look, here's my short answer to that. And we talk about this all the time on the show. This is a very unique market. In 35 years of doing this, since 1987, I've never seen this happen before. Even at 3.2%, 3.5%, if you're south of 4%, right, of mortgage rates, in my opinion, is free money.
Right.
Right.
I agree.
6, 8, 10, 18% when I first
Even
bought it.
6% is
Even
cheap
6%.
money.
So, it's an interesting thing. You can buy more house than you ever can buy before. So I think, and you need to utilize these tools.
Ooh, we're onto something. Maddie Smith, Madison, welcome to the broadcast. Maddie and Cody and their two sons just sold their wonderful townhome across from Willoughby by the Food Line on 5th Street.
Yeah.
They got top dollar.
Yep.
They're very happy, but now you know what they're doing.
Yeah, they're shopping.
They're shopping, looking for a place.
Yeah.
And I don't want to speak out of turn, but she was very smart. She's a prudent businesswoman, sharp businesswoman. She mentioned to me that she had the condition in the contract,
You have
X
to
amount
find-
of time
You have to find another.
to find another house.
Yeah, sure.
Smart lady,
Yeah.
Madison.
Yeah, so House A is contingent on purchase.
That's
of
what
a-
she did.
Yeah,
Smart
so
move.
It's just one of the tools that we bring to the table. The other move that she can do is what we're talking about, this seller possession agreement. And you may want to look at that because you can.
That's when you rent the home back.
Correct. And we've got about a half a dozen clients we're working on that we found them. So we sold their houses at top dollar, 20, 30,000 more than what we probably would have sold it a year ago. So they have a little bit more cash in their pocket, and they're going and buying. So we're closing on the house. They're renting back from it, so they've got all their capital, so they have their cash in hand. So the reason why that's so important is when I'm trying to compete against, you and I are competing to buy Emily's house over here, and I have a $100,000 down payment. That's when down payments are super important, or I have enough cash because I made enough money off of house A to buy house B. But I'm walking in and saying, okay, I'm just doing a 50% loan. I don't have an appraisal because my LTV is there.
Much faster process.
Much faster.
Loan to value.
Thank you. You're knocking off all the contingencies. In my case, I'm probably going to do it with just a home inspection for informational purposes only because I know what I'm looking at. But you're starting to see a lot of that at this point, pass or fail. You're going to ask a question.
Well, I mean, Madison, you have two people in the same position that are throwing questions here. This is the beautiful aspect of this show.
Sure.
To Carrie Rock's question, you're the expert. I'm the moron. I learned from
No,
you.
you're not a moron,
Okay.
but-
This is how I would see it.
So you're doing what I do to myself. Don't do that to you.
Carrie Rock has sold 2 homes already. He has a chance to sell a
I don't know if
third.
I've ever met Carrie.
He's A+ people.
But I got to tell you, is that a cool name or what?
And if you met him, he's even cooler than the name, and the name's cool. He's
I
an
mean-
A+ guy.
I mean, Keith
I think I've
Smith.
known him, Carrie. We've known each other for 15 years. I met him at the Millmont Grill, which is now Sedona Tap House.
Yeah, I got that, yeah.
Anyway, long story short, here's how I would see it. Yes, you're selling your
Wasn't
home.
that Sloan's before?
It was Sloan's.
And
Yeah,
then it
Sloan's Millmont Grill, Sedona
Got it,
Tap
got
House.
it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and I think David Sloan owns a large chunk of that shopping center, the Millmont shops. I'm pretty sure David Sloan owns a large chunk.
Well, I know David personally. I'll keep my...
Yeah, I know David personally too. Good friend. So here's what I'm going to throw to you. To Carrie's point, yes, you're selling your home at top dollar, and you're making a lot of money, and yes, you're buying a new home at top dollar, and that's going to cost you more money than it would have cost you in 2019.
More cash.
Yeah, but where I'm going with this is, with rates so
That's
low,
exactly right.
you're going to win regardless.
That's exactly right.
You're going to buy at top dollar now, you'll sell at top dollar, buy at top dollar. They should cancel, and because rates are so low, you'll win for, say, 2-3 years from now when rates move. And they go higher.
So now is the time to do that.
Because of rates. That's the X factor, right? Don't you think?
It's the X factor. You're also starting to see a little bit of a stabilization in pricing, right? And
Are we? Are we seeing stabilization in pricing?
Well, Mr. Miller, hold on a second here.
Because that's not, I mean, you're the pro. That's not what I'm seeing.
Slide number 6.
Slide 6, J-Dubs.
So annual home price appreciations. 2020.
I love this show. I learned so much from you.
Thank you. 2020, this is based on CoreLogic and Black Knight. So CoreLogic and Black Knight are the big wholesaler of all this information from NAR. Thank you, Judah. So if you can keep that up for a little bit, please. So 2020, we're at 9%. If you take a look at that slide over there, in the Great Depression, prior to that, 04 and 05, that was about 11 or 12% appreciation. What was happening there? People were using their houses as piggy banks at this point,
right?
And they were not appraising on it. So I think at this point, prices will appreciate somewhere between 4 to 6%. That's kind of the normal rate.
Especially around here.
Well, the feds are going to keep it that way. The process is going to keep it. The feds are never going to let it get back up to the point where you can make it a piggy bank. That was the real problem in 08 and up. The feds just open up the cookie jar and just let anybody take cookies out on this point. And if there's just to talk about this a little bit longer, one little slide. Hold on a second here. Hold on. Number 5, please. This is an important thing. This is the default risk in mortgage between 1999 and 2020. What I want everybody to look at when this thing pops up.
Look at the screen, guys.
Is where it says the reasonable lending standards. So if you take a look at the reasonable lending standards, there's a product risk and a borrower risk. You see how that red is so high in 2004, 5, and 6?
Yeah, they were giving money to everybody.
Look where it's at now.
Right.
So we're so way below the reasonable lending thing.
He's basically saying that the people giving money to people are vetting much more seriously
It's why
than they
you
did in
need
the
a
past.
trusted advisor to do this. To get through that process in 04 and 05,
Anybody could have done it.
just a cup of coffee could have did that.
Right.
Now it really takes a tremendous amount of skill sets. It takes an Emily Funk, who's the world's greatest stager. Was that a fair statement?
Wow. Yes, she says yes. And that comes with a raise.
Oops. Damn, did it again, me in my mouth. But to answer the question, Carrie Rock, and I'm just going to walk around all day going, Carrie Rock.
It's a cool name.
That's a cool name.
Yeah.
Keith Smith, Carrie Rock, that's a cool name. Now's the time to do it, man. Go out and do it. Find it. You're in the best negotiating position. I'm assuming you're going to cash out a little bit from the sale. Take your equity and reinvest it into another piece of property. Interest rates will never be
like this
that they are now. And as they go up, your buying power goes down a little bit. So now's the time to do this. And that's what I was trying to get at. Both buyers and sellers are in great positions right now to perform. In the 04, 05, 06, the sellers couldn't do any, I apologize, in 08, when the crash happened in 08, 9, and 10, the sellers couldn't give the stuff away.
And the buyers?
There wasn't any buyers in the market at that point. It's the flip of what we have now. No buyers, a bunch of sellers. Anyway, we are getting at 11:28.
Yeah, this is one of the best ones we've done. It was so natural.
Yeah,
and relaxed.
So
should we get a final word from her? I'm curious to get a final word from her on what she thinks for 2021.
Final word from Emily. But one of the things I love about this show is I've been taking notes all show because all I'm doing is getting great ideas for panel discussions.
Yeah.
And
Keith Smith, Mrs. Rock is doing a happy dance right now. Thanks to what you just said.
That's because she's married to him.
I think this is what it is. Carrie, tell me if this is a good read on the situation here. I don't want to assume. You have Mrs. Rock, the fabulous mom.
I'm sure of it.
And she's like, let's get a house we can raise our bambinos in. And let's do this immediately, Carrie. Is that what's happening right now, Carrie Rock? Because I think that's
Carrie,
what's happening.
I'm going to give you 35 years of marriage experience.
Listen to your wife.
Yeah, I mean, she's going to win no matter what. Because I'm painting my cabinets white now.
Madison Smith. Mm-hmm. Jerry, please tell Keith Smith to encourage those agents to push those coming soons. please give a
Yes.
45-day contingency
Yeah.
to
So
buy a house.
yeah, well, what really needs to happen, and we're going to.
You hear what you said?
I hear what
Yeah.
you're saying. What we really need to do, and we're going to have this conversation after the show with your Canon and your network. We need people to put homes on the market,
Yeah.
right? And they need not to be fearful that they can't buy, right? So Mr. Rock and Mrs. Rock, that's just like so cool.
And he's right. We nailed it. Mrs. Rock wants a house for the kids immediately.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Rock, give me a phone call. We'll get you hooked up. The reality of it is, we need the inventory on the market to buy. There's buyers. It moves. It just needs to happen. And we're gonna.
The coming soon is a no-brainer.
The coming soon is a no-brainer, but there's some things, ethical things.
There's
we gotta-
14. Is it a coming soon window is 14 days now, Matt? Has it always been 14?
No, this is a new policy. So what happens if we're going to list the Mr. and Mrs. Miller's house? This is basically how this works. Once we sign the listing agreement, within 24 hours after that, it has to be put into the MLS.
It must.
It must be put into the MLS as coming soon, right? And but that's only seen by real estate agents. That doesn't go out to the IDX feeds. In other words, it doesn't go out to the
Zillows, et cetera.
Zillows and the realtors and all that
Why
stuff.
not?
Because what the intent and for that is to help people get their houses ready for the market within this kind of feed. But you have 14 days from that start to get it out to the MLS. And actually, if you don't do it, CAR will automatically do it for you.
Wouldn't the agents best be served signing the contract and putting the home in coming soon and on the MLS immediately? Isn't any exposure?
So there's lead times. There's time for Emily for Emily's that do the staging, the client to get the staging put up and all this great stuff. But what it's a great tool is for us professionals is we can figure out what's coming on the market, right, and kind of gauge the market and communicate.
So then it's up to the agent to tap who gets tapped on the shoulder because the coming soon goes.
Well, this is a little slippery slope of a conversation that we're having here because the rules are a little detailed on this, and there's some ethical lines I have to be very careful I don't cross. But we're going to have a roundtable about that because this is a hot topic.
Yeah.
But I need to have a conversation with the president of CAR,
Quentin, QB.
to make sure that I don't get myself into MLS jail on this end of the stuff.
Understood.
But from a watching of the market perspective, as an agent, I'm watching coming soons real closely.
Right.
On that end of it.
Can you see the coming soons and then tell your clients, or do you?
We can have all discussions with our clients. We just can't see the home until it hits the active.
Can you see the coming soons and tell your clients this is the address? Get in your car, drive by, and look.
Anybody can drive by anything. It's a free country, right?
Okay.
They can drive by and do that. But it's the tool by which it's born off of a thing called clear cooperation, and the intent of it
It's
was
to keep pocket listings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To prevent
Right.
pocket listings. So there is which I
makes sense.
never understood. I mean, the best way I can help Mr. and Mrs. Miller is to bring in
As much exposure as possible.
is to bring in Emily to declutter and go ahead and get that and get you out in front of many eyeballs as possible to raise that price. So, but there's a little bit of a slippery slope here, and I don't want to go too much down the road. But there's a show here to happen.
How about this? Christopher Eagle is competing for best dressed agent in the Yes Realty Partners office. He's just said that. Do you have a pick, best dressed agent? That's the toughest question you just got asked today, right there.
That's definitely
Just remember
putting me
who
in
writes
the hot
your
seat,
check.
So
You're gonna take the fifth on that one.
I take the
Remember who signs the check.
Christopher Eagle.
right,
says
Christopher. Sorry, buddy.
He's competing against you. He just said that.
Well, why don't we divide it up? The best dressed almost 60, and the best dressed not almost 60. This way we both win.
Okay, there you go. Hey,
Closing statement.
yeah, anything to close with, Emily?
I would just say do yourself the best favor you can and enter the market as strongly as you can by getting professional opinions in each area that's necessary to get your home listed. And so having a stager come in and just do a quick consultation, there's a little bit of an upfront cost, but it can pay dividends down the road.
There you go.
So I have to tell you, just sitting here thinking about this, both my daughters, one's on Seattle, one's in Connecticut.
Seattle and Connecticut.
and my
You had your friends in Richmond watching.
and my son-in-law, my
Yeah.
family,
Yeah.
was watching me.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Power of the social media when
That is,
used
like,
for the good,
Super cool.
as opposed to splitting the country because of politics.
Oh yeah, well, look at that. We're making the country a better place. So here on the I Love
Just talking about
Charlottesville.
bow ties and staging.
bow ties, days,
Bow ties and staging.
and stuff.
And
Talking about stuff.
How about Tuesday's preview before we get out of here?
I haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
I've been keeping such notes. It's
We'd love to get all 4.
yeah, we're gonna work on it. We're gonna
It's
work
so
on
fun.
it. Emily, would you come back on if we invite you?
I'll
You're a
come back
natural.
on.
Cool.
Oh, thank you.
Seriously, I sincerely mean that. You were very,
Who's
very
on your
good.
noon show today?
Your buddy Harvey Mayorga from
Oh,
Guajiros
Cool.
is going to be making cocktails in here.
Ooh.
So we're going to have some cocktails
Emily,
at 12:30.
what's on my calendar for the rest of the day?
Well, mine just cleared up, so
I like her wit. And also, Kelly, she just got her COVID shot. So we're going to talk about what it's like,
Kelly.
Jackson,
Oh,
for a
I
mom
was actually thinking of her this morning. I
of
need
2 that got a COVID shot and what she's feeling.
Cool.
Yeah?
I got to give her a call. I was thinking of her this morning.
Cool. Do it. Keith Smith, Yes Realty Partners.
Jerry Miller.
Yes Team Realtors. Trusted brands in the game. Yes Realty Partners. Judah Wickhauer is our director. Emily Funk, Rockstar. Keith Smith. I'm Jerry. No, you were fantastic.
Yeah, it's a bow tie.
This is Real Talk. Tuesdays and Fridays at 10:15 on the I Love Seville Network. You guys, take care. Hey, nicely done.
Well done, Emily.
Yeah, seriously.
thank you.
I sincerely.